That's what good weather looks like, brother. That's the good shit. We are enjoying a nice, cool, rainy June night. It is officially summer now. And I look like garbage. Good lord, what's happening here? It's been a long day, so excuse my disgusting appearance. So, you have returned to the second part of the June reading update. Like I said last time in part 1, my June reading is my plans for June reading were pretty stacked already. I had stuff that I wanted to do. It's a bit gimmicky, I guess, but since it is Pride Month, I wanted to check off some of those LGBTQ plus titles that I had on my to-read list since forever. I felt like might as well take this time, this month, to have another reason to get to those books that I've already had on my list, and so I tried to get through a bunch of them. It's also always nice to read a bunch of books back to back that have like a combining theme. I really like doing that, and this month it has been mostly in general LGBTQ plus subjects, but there's especially a lot about gender roles, gender identities. That's mostly what we're gonna be looking at here in some degree or another. We're gonna start off with something sort of unusual for me, because I finally read another book in my native language again, at least partially in my native language. It's not completely in German, but yeah, the rare thing that I barely do, I read a book written in German. The book in question is called Blutbuch by Kim de l'Horizon. Last year in 2022, the German Book Prize, Book Award, something like that, was given out to Kim de l'Horizon, who is a non-binary author, which I guess unsurprisingly was the first time that a non-binary author won that award, which is dope, cool and awesome. And also the book is also about a non-binary person. Basically, it is an auto-fictional book, so it is partially autobiographical based on their real life, and then like fictionalized to tell the story, to make this project, to create this text. Blutbuch translated basically means blood book, although it is also a reference to a tree called Blutbuche, which is like Buche is beech wood, Beech, because this tree is a central object in the story. The book is auto-fictional, so it is not like the clear truth. It is a work that is using the author's real-life experiences and their self-reflective journey of this self-discovery, I guess, as a basis for this text, without clinging to the facts. It is a transformative work based on real life. It is obviously about the non-binary experience in Germany, which that is a whole can of worms in itself, because reading a German text about non-binary people is something special, because the German language is not at all equipped for gender-neutral expression. It's really hard to speak or write truly gender-neutral, because the words just don't exist. Like, for example, we do not have an equivalent to they, them. Obviously there's a change right now, but traditionally there's only he or she. We don't have an equivalent to they, them. We don't actually have a way to refer to people in a gender-neutral way unless we create something new or adapt something from a different language, which is a problem in itself. So it's super interesting to see this non-binary author really committing to the gender-neutral language and really going all the way in writing this German text in a modern way, in a very inclusive way, in a very gender-neutral way. It's not something that you see often in German literature. To express yourself gender-neutrally, to express yourself neutrally towards gender in the German language, you have to play around with language and kind of break traditional language norms. So there's already wordplay that is needed to express this, and that feeds very well in the general exploration of language throughout this book. Language and like the way people express themselves is sort of a running theme throughout this book. Is written in conventional German. It is also written in traditional, old-timey Swiss German with its own dialect. It's also there's also parts in like really modern, almost rebellious queer talk that is in there that clashes with the traditional senses of German. And there's also like a third of this book or whatever is actually written in English because it is things that the author doesn't dare to write in German. Because different languages can, for example, give a sort of privacy to a person because certain people won't understand you. So it's actually interesting to see this German book use the English language in the sense of expressing something that is not for everyone's eyes. Expressing something in a foreign language for the purpose of having a private space. Like there's a lot of play with language. There's a lot of clashing of different ways of expression, and that is a really interesting subject about this. The whole plot, it's not really much of a plot. It's more of a character thing. So plot-wise, this mostly deals with this person trying to uncover some secrets of their past, looking for a sort of suspected trauma, finding pieces of intergenerational trauma, finding oneself and one's own identity, and seeing the roots of one's own identity. Those are like the general subjects about this. The book is very much structured in very different parts. Like there's a long part where the author just tells you about their grandmother in a lot of detail with a lot of anecdotes. There's then a long part where the character is going through extensive family tree biographies of people far in the past all the way to the present. Then there's also long parts about what is it called, botany, right? Because the tree, the aforementioned tree, seems to be such an integral symbol or object in the family's history. So there's an extensive part about the research of the history of botany in Germany, and it has like these sort of individual fragments that go very in depth into the individual moments, and sometimes it feels a bit aimless because there's a lot of walking but never a goal that's reached, or like rarely a goal that's reached. A lot of that is interesting, but for a while, at least to me, it felt aimless until it did absolutely successfully pull it all together in the final third of the book or so, where it really took all the strings, pulled it all together, and really tied a nice bow around it, where all the different elements of the book really came together for one final point that made the whole journey through the book worth it. And yeah, I don't think this book has been translated in a different language except I think there's like a French or Italian one, but otherwise I don't think this book has been translated. And honestly, quite honestly, with all the like language play that is at work here, with all the like different dialects, all the different kinds of German language that is like played against each other, as well as the purposeful use of the English language, I don't think this book would really, like, it would be a whole project to localize this book into the English language without losing a lot of its core aspects. So I don't know, most people that watch this are probably native English tongues, and so I don't know if you're ever gonna be even able to read this, but yeah, this is a German award-winning book about a unique subject. Unfortunately, it's unique. It would be great if there was way more about the non-binary experience in Germany specifically. I'm sure this is not the only book, but like, this isn't something that's gonna be out there a ton right now, I'm sure. It is definitely unique in that way. It's also unique in how it is written. And it was a good read for sure. I didn't regret it at all. Next up, what did I read after that? Oh god, yeah. If you're an avid book reader as well, then you probably know this experience where you have certain books on your to-read list that you really want to get to someday, that are really interesting and maybe even important to you, but you just know they are going to be heavy hitters and you might not be ready for it when you decide to read it. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is gonna be one of those for me, because I went into this fully expecting it to be a hard to stomach read. I thought it was an important read, and I undoubtedly I knew it would be an interesting read as well, and so I partially pushed myself to read it this month, and I'm glad I did that instead of like letting it lie on my to read pile more longer. The mood is gonna be a bit somber with this one, I think. So this is The Life and Death of Latisha King, a critical phenomenology of transphobia by Gayle Salamon. So this is a philosophical autopsy of a hate crime. Fucking genuine huge trigger warning. I can't talk about this book without mentioning the content in that sense, like transphobia and murder, especially like child murder. Like that is what this is about in every sense. So be ready for that. This is a heavy theme. I don't know how much I'm going to be talking about this, but let's see where I get. Latisha King was a kid, a trans girl that was shot in the head by a fellow student when they were 14 and 15 years old respectively. This happened in 2011, I think. Let's check. I don't want to be wrong about this. This happened in 2008. And this book is written by someone who studied this case, experienced the court proceedings herself, and wrote this very extensive and pretty dang thorough analysis of the whole situation, of the whole tragedy, specifically with a phenomenological lens pointed towards it, which means, and I wasn't familiar really with this term myself, so I'm gonna try to crudely explain the crux of phenomenology, which is a philosophical strain that deals with how we perceive our surroundings, how our consciousness processes what the senses we take in, because they basically shape our experience, our life, and partially our personality and choices. So this is a way to explain where unquestioned common sense comes from, how that leads to prejudice, and how the way we express things, again, language as a theme, the way we express things consciously or unconsciously frames things in a subjective way. The same in how whatever we perceive, we immediately attach a subjective meaning to that is not objective and not necessarily true in any way. And these things, these structures that are inevitable in the human life, can lead to crimes like this, hate crimes like this. And so the author is picking apart this specific case of this hate crime from this sort of perspective to pick apart the structures in our individual as well as communal consciousness, how they formed a space where this could happen. So this is difficult on two layers. First, the heavy subject, the hate crime committed to a child. And secondly, if like me, you're not like used to reading philosophy, this can be a bit demanding to read. It takes brain juice, at least it did for me, but it is insightful and interesting, I think. Like phenomenology, no matter what like version you follow or whatever, because phenomenology doesn't have like a hard concrete definition like probably true for almost any philosophical strain. Plenty of different philosophers define the elements and meanings of phenomenology differently. It still works as an interesting and insightful way to analyze how we react to our surroundings and then are formed by that, and vice versa, manipulate our surroundings accordingly. There's a lot of interesting things here, and I think this is a very valuable book if you're interested in the psychological elements of injustice and prejudice and things. If you're interested in how those things develop in human minds and human communities, this is a very, very interesting and thorough example to look at that and analyze these things. And also, especially if you're interested into transphobia, that specific prejudice, if you're interested in how that develops or can be avoided, how you there's value in here. This is a good book if you're ready for something heavy, that you want to get something out of that might change the way you think about yourself or the behavior of other people. This is a recommendation for sure. But yeah, it's also very uncomfortable. There's a lot of direct quotes from the court proceedings. I think those happened in 2011. I think that's where I got the number from. Maybe not, I don't know, whatever. But it's shocking to hear some of these things the teachers, for example, say. It's actually unbelievable. Whether there actually have been good intentions or not, some of those teachers that are quoted here throughout the court case are fucking awful, and it is incredible that they were even able to hold a job after this. It's fucked. I mean, it's a lot about this book is how something that doesn't fit a community's normal common sense, which they only perceive as a normal common sense because that's what feels common to them, not because there's an actual reason. There's common sense and unsaid social rules, I guess, can be very dangerous if not questioned. Just like this, where it is just so normalized that gender can only be one or the other, and that more importantly even, that any deviation from those gender norms is dangerous to the rest of community. Those short-sighted and simply wrong notions that people often share as common sense, unconsciously most of the time, that's the things that endanger people that are not sticking to the norms. And this is, unfortunately, this case is a perfect example for that, how that builds a breeding ground for hatred and abuse. If you are willing to get into a philosophical text that probably is gonna take a little bit more brain juice from you than you may be used to, and you are interested in the trans experience, in trans lives, then I think this might be a must read. But yeah, that was a heavy hitter that I'm certainly glad I read. I'm really, really glad I read. Rest in power, Latisha King. So after that I wanted to read something more lighthearted possibly, or at least something fictional, and I've been hoping that I would have been able to get my hands on Elliot Page's recently published autobiography, Page Boy. I've been waiting for that for like half a year, but I haven't been able to get this yet. I ordered it from my library like a week ago, and I'm still waiting for them to tell me that I can pick it up. Hasn't happened yet though. So in the meanwhile, I picked up another book, a short book that I was hoping would fill the gap between the previous book and then Page Boy once I can get it. Unfortunately, I already finished this short book and I still haven't gotten Page Boy in my hands, so that didn't really pan out the way I wished it would. But here's the third book. This is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, by Eric LaRocca. And I'll tell you now, this one wasn't a banger. Like, I knew beforehand already that this was a divisive book. People either hated or loved it seemed. And I was less than halfway through this, and I already knew that I would lean to the camp of people that didn't like this book that much. The basic premise is really good. The story deals with the problematic relationship of two women who only talk with each other via the internet, specifically via email and instant messaging. The entire text is emails and chat logs. It is all presented in a true crime way, where the author even says that certain text fragments have been omitted, or like by request of the police and whatnot. There's a short little introduction saying that the court proceedings are still going on or whatever. And that is really cool. This could all lead to a really nice, authentic, candidly feeling fictional true crime story. Really was into the idea of this whole story being told through this online correspondence, through the emails and chat logs only. And that is true. The entire text is that, but this book is not capitalizing on that at all. The two people are not writing like they are writing emails. These two people are not exchanging information and having a conversation. These people are writing walls of text, walls of professionally edited texts, like they are trying to win the fucking annual prize for short stories. They embellish anecdotes with flowery prose when it's not needed, and none of it feels authentic. None of it actually feels like the true crime concept actually is pulled through. This feels less like two people having conversations and more like two bad actors doing overwritten monologues at each other. It's not great, and that's just the writing style. The actual plot itself is also that these two women are getting into a like straight up abusive relationship. They clearly both have like their respective trauma to carry, but I mean the book is so brief and short anyway that there's no real room to paint these two people as believable traumatized people or whatever. And the most egregious thing though, the way the protagonist character falls for the obvious abuse without proper reasoning. Like the way the protagonist, how quick and hard she falls for this obvious and frankly ridiculous abuse that the other person subjects her to, is honestly, ridiculous. It's laughable. There was, for me, no actual tension in there. It was almost impossible for me to empathize with this protagonist because all of her actions were so questionable. All of her decisions were so questionable and flimsy and like unreasonable that I couldn't actually engage with it in a serious manner. And before you know it ends because it is so short and it doesn't leave me with any actual lasting impression except for maybe how ridiculous this whole thing was. This is misery porn with underwritten characters producing overwritten text. Nothing of this like introduced true crime narrative actually feels authentic in any way, and it just makes for a really pulpy, unbelievable story that I never was able to properly get into. Yes, there are some elements that I still liked. Every now and then there was some neat writing in there, and it wasn't the worst book I read. It wasn't like, it didn't make me angry. It was just ridiculous for the most part. So yeah, like I said, I definitely belong to the people that were not a fan of this, and I completely see where all the criticisms are coming from. And yeah, that's the three books that I have been reading up until now. There's still a week left to this month, and I'm still hoping to get the Elliot Page autobiography before the month ends. Right now, to bridge the gap from this book to Page Boy, I've started reading an anthology book with stories all written by trans people. I don't know if I'm gonna be finishing that until the end of the month, but that's what I'm reading right now. Again, I'm hoping to get Page Boy soon, so I can actually dig into that and hopefully include it into this video before the month ends. But that is the status right now. That is all I can say at this moment. And I need to shut the camera off and open my window again because I'm fucking sweating. Anyway, see ya in a second. Why is it so bright out? So, if you're hearing noise, it's because of the lovely open window, letting some of that rare early morning cool air in. There's not gonna be another book review in this video. The month is coming to a close, there's only a few days left, and I'm not gonna be finishing anything until then. Like I said earlier, I've been waiting for the Elliot Page autobiography. I've ordered it through the interlibrary loan system from my local library, so they could like get it sent over from any other library in Germany so that I could get my hands on it, and I've been waiting for that for 2 weeks now. I mean, they accepted the request. I wasn't even sure if they would do it. And from what I had seen online, since the book is so new, that there weren't even like libraries were just starting to even get the book since it was so new. So I didn't expect to get it fast or at all, but I'm on the waiting list now, I guess, to get the book at some point. After I got the notification that they accepted my request for the book, I thought I would wait maybe like 1 to 3 weeks or whatever, since it is a new book and whatever. I thought that would make sense to have to wait like that. I've gotten an email recently from a library worker saying that they now have the German version, the German translation of the book. They added that to my local library's system, and the worker asked me if I just want to get that instead, or if I really want to wait for the English original. And I thought, it's an autobiography written by the person. I would rather read it in the original language of the person than the German translation. And so I said, no, I'm gonna wait no matter what. Thanks for asking though. I wrote, it would be kinda neat if you could give me like an estimate on what you think the book, when it might be available for me. And the reply a few days later was like, oh, this could take like up to 3 months or even more, who knows? And even then, we can't even assure that it's gonna happen. So I'm on the list, but it's like a complete crapshoot when I'm actually gonna be able to get the book. So I'm just gonna wait some more. I'm just gonna stay on the waiting list, and if I happen to get it through another source, then I'll just abort the request or whatever. It's a bit of a bummer. Like I said, I was hyped for the book pre-release already, and I was really excited to read it in the month of June. That's not gonna happen now, but I'm not gonna fuss about it. I'm just gonna keep on the waiting list, let it take its time or whatever, and maybe I'll find another way to get it that is in my means of budget. So right now I'm just reading the Transphobia anthology book, which is neat so far. This is gonna be it. This is gonna be the ending of my part 2. But I am still gonna go to the library today, because the person that took out like part 2 and 3 of the Uzumaki manga by Junji Ito, of which I read the first one last month, and was then waiting for the person to fucking give back the other parts of the story. I probably would have already read at least volume 2, maybe even both 2 and 3, but for some reason I'm unlucky enough that volume 2 and 3 are actually checked out at the library right now by somebody else. It finally happened. It's finally available again, and I'm gonna go to the library today to pick them up, both volume 2 and 3, to complete the story. So that's also, you can expect that also in the next video in July. But yeah, that's it. That's all that's happening in regards to reading this month. So yeah, thanks for watching. See ya. Bye bye.